And this is your Ole Gunnar Solskjaer press conference reaction for the West Ham United game. And United are in the trenches and they're starting to run out of food. That is the situation, because there's no Anthony Martial, there is no Paul Pogba, and there is no Luke Shaw for the game against West Ham United. If you're wondering where the press conference is, because of the Thursday night game, what basically happens is he does his post-match press conference, then there's an embargoed bit for the West Ham bit to save him having to do it this morning. But confirmation, and bad confirmation really, that Martial and Pogba are out. I think Luke Shaw we could just about get by with, because you've got Young, you've got Rojo, you've got players who can do a job there. But Pogba and Martial, I mean, the reality is that both those players have now missed over 50% of our season, and we've only just got going. It really reflects badly on the summer, and I get bored of talking about the summer. I get people saying it's boring talking about the summer because we've got so many injuries, and the lack of investment in the midfield and the attack was always going to harm this season at some point. The bad thing is, I didn't expect it to be harming us this soon. I thought, we'll start off with a fresh squad, we'll be in the battle for top four, and then around November, January time, when there's a bit of fatigue, we're going to see that we should have invested in the midfield and the attack. Unfortunately, we're now doing it backs to the wall at the start of September, and that's why not spending in the summer was such a bad thing. Got some updates on Greenwood and Rashford from Ollie as well, talking about Rashford's finishing, talking about Greenwood as well. But let's just stick on the injuries. There's a hope that Dan James will be back, and we bloody need Dan James. And you can talk about Rashford, but Rashford needed to play last night, didn't he? Of course he had to play last night, because there is nobody else to play, and Rashford will play again on Sunday. And this is the thing, isn't it? Whatever you think about Marcus Rashford and whatever you think about his form, and we'll talk about what Ollie said in a moment, whatever you think about his form, the cold harsh fact is he's having to play Sunday, Thursday, Sunday. Next Wednesday he'll probably have to play. Then he'll have to play Monday. Then he'll go on then he'll play Newcastle. Then he'll play Europa League before that. Then he'll go and play for England twice. He's playing a ridiculous amount of football, and the hypocrisy of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, in a positive way. I'm not calling Ollie a hypocrite, but what I'm saying, what he's spoken about as Rashford's finishing, he's only in his early 20s and you don't get into your prime until you're 26, 27, and he's still got a lot to learn about finishing. And yet here he is, supposedly a player that's got loads and loads to learn, playing up front for Manchester United every bloody game with no rest. It's a ridiculous amount of pressure on a lad who's lacking confidence, who can't score bloody tap-ins at the moment, and is having to play every single minute because we let Lukaku and Sanchez go, quite rightly, but we didn't bring anybody else in, and it leaves us massively exposed. So Dan James has to play on Sunday now, whether he's got a knock or not. He's got to bloody play, because how are we going to score goals? We've got no Martial, we've got no Pogba, and we'll be doing the preview a little bit later on. But the point remains that this is hard. This is bloody hard graft, and it's very hard for Solskjaer, it's very hard for Manchester United Football Club, but it's very hard for us, the Manchester United fans, to be... What we've been through over the last 6 years has been really, really tough. Really, really tough. And I know you're going to get Bolton fans going, oh, you don't know the meaning of the word tough. I'm sorry, when you're used to eating caviar and you're stuck eating beans on toast, you've got every right to moan. All right, Bolton eat beans on toast and it's cold every night, but you're used to that. We're not used to this at Manchester United. We're used to being spoiled, we're used to being arrogant, and it ain't very nice. It's not very nice, the situation at the moment. And it's not nice being in early September and going, bloody hell, West Ham away is a bloody nightmare game now. That should never be the case. So we've got our backs to the wall. We've got to come out fighting. I don't necessarily think we can't get a result against West Ham, but we needed Martial back. We needed Pogba back, and both of them not being back, it just makes you question them as well, doesn't it? Unfairly, you start questioning them, thinking, are they in any rush to get back? Are they just injury-prone players? I don't know, but you start to get frustrated, and it's unfair to be frustrated with the players, because ultimately, we should have a good enough squad to go into that West Ham game, and, you're going to miss Pogba and you're going to miss Martial, but there's so many people just feeling like we're on the floor now. We're absolutely on the floor. Mark, I beg... lobster and steak to noodles and tuna, says Andrew Barnes. Rashi is the future. El Capitano, says Dan Kim. Youth is the future, says Daniel Saunders. So look, let me just talk about a few things about what Ollie said, but let me just come back on that. So Martial, Pogba and Shaw are out. Dan James has a knock but should be back. We have got a lot of good players to come back in. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire, De Gea, McTominay will come back in. I mean, the midfield's weak, let's be honest. McTominay's really the only player, in Pereira, I mean, it's... are they the quality we need to come back against West Ham? You'd hope Fred would be involved now, but maybe he won't be, I don't know. And then up front, you've got Rashford and Dan James. I mean, Lingard's back. He didn't look great last night, did he? I know he hit the post with that keeper. Mata, it's the same, it's the usual suspects. And the issue that we've got, that I would take from yesterday, because a lot of you lot are talking about the youth. With regards to the youth, I think with the youth, a lot of criticism for Tahith Chong last night. Didn't think he played well, but in the future he might be a good player. Doesn't look quite ready yet. Gomez, Gomez looks good, but I think we're going to need to be patient with Gomez. And the same with Greenwood. Look, with any of those youth players, you can't just chuck them in against West Ham and say, go and express yourself. I don't think he can do that. Even I don't think they can do that. I think they've got to be kept back for Rochdale. That's your next 90 minutes. Go and express yourself. Gradually build. And you go back to what Gary Neville said on Monday about when they came into the team and they had they had a brilliant spine. They had people like Roy Keane and Schmeichel and Cantona. They had leaders on the pitch to nurture them. These lads are basically, some fans are saying, let's pick them, let's play them, in a situation whereby they're not really ready. They're not really ready for this. And also, our better players aren't even there to nurture them. There's no Pogba there if you play Gomez. There's no Martial there if you play Martial. It's a very inexperienced team. Dan James is inexperienced. Rashford's inexperienced. McTominay is inexperienced. Pereira is inexperienced. Jesse Lingard's only 17. We're a massively inexperienced team, and it's going to be a bloody difficult game on Sunday now with all these injuries. But then again, you say all these injuries, it's basically two. Luke Shaw, I like Luke Shaw, but we can get by with Rojo and Jones. Young. Martial and Pogba, it's two players, and it makes a huge bit of difference. And it really, really, really annoys me. It really annoys me that we are in this situation because of lack of investment in the summer. If we'd signed Bruno Fernandes and we'd signed another striker, then we'd be in a much better situation now. We're not talking about hundreds of millions. We're just talking about another 100 million. We spent 60 million net. If we'd spent 150 million, we'd have a striker and we'd have a midfielder. We could have got Bruno Fernandes for 60 million. He'd be playing on Sunday instead of Pogba. And we could have got, what's his name, from Sevilla for 40 million. I forget what his name is. Yedder. We could have got Ben Yedder for 40 million. And again, he could have been playing up front. So the options are there. Eddie Goodwin doesn't get the joke about Lingard. Well, look, he also spoke about defence being very important and clean sheets are important. We've had 2 clean sheets, Ollie said, one against Leicester and one against Astana. To be honest with you, the clean sheet against Astana doesn't really mean much. I think my pub team could get a clean sheet against Astana. You're playing a team that really needed a sat-nav to find out where our penalty box was. I know they got relatively close a couple of times, but come on, they're crap. If you don't get a clean sheet against Astana, you've got a problem, haven't you? I think a Vauxhall Astra would be more effective, but the clean sheet against Leicester was good. And Ollie's basically saying if we go to West Ham and get a clean sheet, it's less pressure on our strikers, which brings me on to Rashford. And he basically said, I'm not worried about Rashford's problems at the moment. He still needs to learn how to finish chances. He highlighted that chance. The 2 really good chances he missed. He also missed a chance where he went with it with his right foot and he should have gone with his left foot. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer actually said that in the press conference that there was a chance on his right foot where he needed to go with his left foot. He's got the best coach in striking terms in the world. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is probably a better striking coach than someone like Alan Shearer, because I'm not saying Solskjaer was a better finisher than Shearer. He probably was in many ways, but more importantly, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer spent a lot of his career coming on for the last 10-15 minutes and he had to make it count. So he analysed the game better. If Marcus Rashford opens his ears and listens to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he can become a great finisher. Ole also said that, Marcus Rashford's still only in his early 20s and, that strikers don't get into their prime till 26, 27. I think there's a level of hypocrisy to that as well, because you've got Mason Greenwood 17 and Ollie's saying he's the best finisher we've got. And then you've got Marcus Rashford 21 and you're saying he won't be at his best till he's 26, 27. Although Marcus Rashford's been playing regularly for Manchester United and England for over 3 years. So, I think Rashford should be doing better than what he's doing at the moment. But I do empathise and sympathise with Rashford. He's been forced to play too much football. He's not a number 9. And at the end of the day, for everybody moaning about him, and I understand with that, what who are you going to drop Rashford for on Sunday is my question. Because we didn't invest in the striking department, you can't actually drop a player that needs to be dropped. That's the idiocy of the situation that the board have put in Solskjaer in. He cannot rest Rashford, and more importantly, he couldn't even consider dropping Rashford. So it doesn't really matter if Rashford misses another 50 goal chances on Sunday. It doesn't matter how many crap free kicks he takes. He will be playing every game at the moment because there is nobody else. And that's what I'm trying to get across. There is nobody else to play instead of Marcus Rashford. And we can moan about his form, we can moan about burnout, we can moan about a lot of things, but there is nobody else. And that's the stupid situation we put ourselves into by not buying a striker. As I said, removing Lukaku and removing Sanchez, I agree that it was absolutely spot on. And all the criticism Lukaku gets, how much would you wish Lukaku was still at the club now? Even I would say it was brilliant to get rid of him. He needed to go. But right now, we need Lukaku and Sanchez. We do, don't we? And I 100% am happy that we got rid of them. I think it was exactly the right thing to do. The mistake was not to bring somebody in. That was the mistake. And to let them go and not replace them is stupid. I don't like Lukaku as a footballer. I think he's trampoline toes. Sanchez, massively inconsistent. But right now, it doesn't matter how bad their first touch is. We can all wear safety glasses. The reality is, right now, you could have done with Lukaku playing last night and Rashford having a rest for Sunday. That's the error that they've made. We are way, way, way too thin up front and way too thin in the midfield. And they didn't invest, and it's really pissing me off, to be honest with you. Will Martial and Pogba be back for Arsenal? Says Dylan O'Driscoll. Well, look, I'd said that Martial could be a 20-goal striker this season. He probably isn't going to do it because already he's missed too many games. He's missed, this will be his third league game he's missed. You're missing too many games, Tony. I don't know how bad the injury is, but to be honest with you, what's the threshold with these injuries? Are these players fighting to get back? Are they simply cannot play? Is there a drive? And I don't know. What we do know is you get some players who have a low playing threshold and don't want to play with pain. You have some players that will play half injured. I don't know. I'm not levelling anything at Luke Shaw or Pogba or Martial here. That's unfair to do it. But the reality is we desperately need these players back. And could they be back on Sunday? Well, they're not going to be back. But could one of them have played with a bit of an injury? I don't know. But that's the situation we're in now. You're analysing injuries and you're I'm unfairly sort of questioning these injuries and what's the appetite to get back. When the reality is the club should have took control of that and brought players in. He spoke about Mason Greenwood and said, look, he's doing really fantastic. If he keeps scoring, he's going to play games. Would Greenwood play against West Ham? Physically, I think he's still got he's going to need more games to get used to it. But, we're going to need a performance on Sunday where our defence is very, very good. And I think we've already seen as well that the midfield needs to be Pogba, McTominay and Fred until we buy a midfielder. Fred last night, most touches, most passes, most interceptions, most fouls. It just shows that he's a tenacious, quick midfielder. And he needs to play. McTominay obviously is still learning the job himself, and Pogba's our best midfielder. That needs to be our best that needs to be our midfield three. But obviously we can't play that on Sunday now. Everybody joining a little bit late. Please do smash a like on the video, everybody. Let's see if we can get up to 500 likes while we're live. I'm going to take some of your questions at the moment. Let me just remove somebody. Trolls, you won't get read out. You just get deleted. So I don't really see what your motivation is in doing that. It doesn't wind me up and it doesn't get read out. Mark looks younger each day. Top bloke, says Dan Kim. I'll read that out. I am looking a bit fresh today. Although I feel very, very tired. I think Fred could now get a run of games. Hope says Ultra 67. I mean, the difficulty with that for Fred is, look at how Wolves are struggling at the moment. And they're struggling because they've played 2 rounds of Europa League just to get into the group stage. They lost last night to Braga. They'll probably lose to Palace on Sunday. It's very hard to play Thursday and then Sunday. And Fred played last night. So is he going to have the energy to play on Sunday? It's difficult. It's really difficult. Is Rashford playing West Ham games? Says Manas. 100%. 100% Rashford will play because we haven't got anybody else. Martial and Pogba and Shaw are out. Rashford's got to play. Dan James might not play. I mean, we are really threadbare. And there is a level of embarrassment here. There is a level of embarrassment here. We are threadbare, and it's September the 20th. It's only our 6th game in the Premier League, and we are threadbare. You know, Man City moaning about lack of centre-backs. United, 2 big injuries to Martial and Pogba, and we are screwed. You know, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And it's embarrassing the level of pressure we now have to put on young players who should be being nurtured in. Like, you know, talking about, oh, Greenwood and Gomez have got to start. I'm guilty of it as much as you are. But this is an away game against West Ham in the Premier League, and we want to chuck a couple of kids into the team and say, go and express yourselves. They should be going into a team, you know, look, like Gary Neville's right. They were playing with the likes of Cantona and Roy Keane and Paul Ince when they were getting their first few games, and Bruce and Pallister and Schmeichel, all these great leaders around them. We're going to chuck our youngsters in with bloody inexperience itself. It just disgusts me what the board have done. And they cannot hide. They cannot hide behind, well, we didn't spend the money because we didn't want to, because we're confident in the squad we've got. What a load of tosh. What a load of absolute tosh. Like, everybody knows if you want to nurture youth, you've got to have experience there to help them out. Like, to pretend that we didn't buy players because we're really confident in our youth. Well, look, Chong isn't ready. Gomez needs games, but he needs games with better players around him. He needs players like Pogba and Martial around him. Greenwood, yeah, look, let's give him game time, but really, is he ready to go and play every week? No. It's a load of tosh what we're being sold by the club. Oh, we're really happy with the signings that we made, and we're really happy with the squad that we've got. Everyone's together and happy. Well, you know what? So what if they're bloody happy? We've got to produce on the pitch. And I don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been given a very good hand by the board. And I think that's going to be the problem. And if we lose on Sunday, which is a possibility, it's more of a possibility without Pogba and Martial than it would be if we had them. If we lose on Sunday, what's the moaning going to be about? Because for me, it's still going to be about the board. Like, you know, we're going into that game without shin pads. You know, we're not going into it with all the armour that we need. Man United youth years ago was world class. Now everyone is overtaken, says Rick Muntz. Well, look, I was talking about the youth. Look, Arsenal and Chelsea's youth are ahead of ours at the moment. I don't care what anybody says. You can get defensive about it, but the reality is, whether you're talking about Chong, whether you're talking about Gomez, whether you're talking about Greenwood, the reality is Chelsea's youth is better than ours. And it's better than ours because they loaned it out effectively. A lot of people like Mason Mount and Tammy Abraham and Tamori, they've all been out on loan in the Championship, and they've all played a lot of games, and that has stood them in good stead. None of our youth has been out on loan apart from Twan Sebi. And Twan Sebi last night was streets ahead of Phil Jones. So that loan did him the world of good. Chong and Gomez, they've not been out on loan. They've still been playing under 23 football. They probably should have been on loan. Arsenal's youth looks better than ours at the moment because they're playing in a system that they know. They know that system really, really well. And Manchester United's first team doesn't even know the system. We as fans don't know what the system is. So that's a hurdle our youth have got that the Chelsea and Arsenal players don't have. They know this, and at Chelsea, they know the system they're playing. It's very, very clear what system they're playing at Arsenal and Chelsea. Well, whether it's successful or not, they know the system they're playing. There's no confusion for a youth player coming in. They know how to play. They know how to work in the system. That's a big advantage for any player. And on top of that, of course, the Chelsea lads, they've all had a good loan as well. So our youngsters are already fighting a losing battle in many ways compared to those players because they're coming into a team that's very confused, and also they've not really had any high-level football either. So, I'm not saying that they're gonna fail because of that, but they do have a tougher battle. And also the third element is they're coming into a team with no leaders in it. And whatever you think about Arsenal, they do have people like Aubameyang and David Luiz, who played last night as well, with those youngsters who are experienced players. And at Chelsea, the same thing. You've got people like Kante, Jorginho, and a few other experienced players to play with them. We at the moment, we don't really have that because we haven't even got Pogba on the pitch. So it's a struggle. It's a struggle. Twan Sebi has captain potential. Really stoked for him, says Michael Richard. I thought Twan Sebi was fantastic last night. I thought he was really, really good. Southpaw loves sports. Hi, Mark. Since no Shaw, would you have Dalot, Rojo play at West Ham over Young? Ashley Young will definitely start against West Ham. I don't necessarily agree with that. I thought Dalot played really well last night. We're well stacked at the back. Like, we've got a good defence. We could keep a clean sheet against West Ham. It's just what we're going to do going forward. The midfield is inexperienced, and so is the attack. Defensively, we're well stacked. Wan-Bissaka will play. Dalot's fit. On the left-hand side, you've got Young or Rojo. I mean, could you find one of them a place in the midfield? Do you need to find a place in the midfield? Could you play Dalot as an advanced right-sided attacker, maybe? There are options, but Nimesh says that clearly our youth is better. I don't know what you're basing that on, mate. Speculation. You can't say our youth's better than Chelsea and Arsenal at the moment. There's no real evidence to say that. I think they can be, but they've got their hands tied behind their back like everybody else has at United, because the board have not helped the situation at all. Mr. B says, if Fred continues form, are we better off playing him and McSauce in CDM and Pogba in a CAM? Also, do you think we will sign players in January? I'm fed up of talking about January, Mr. Beast. I do not want to talk about January transfer window. I've spoken about it so many times. We've just screwed up a whole summer transfer window, not buying a midfielder and an attacker, and people want to hope that we're going to do something in January, which is the worst transfer window to do anything, because people don't want to sell, prices are inflated, and you can't get the players that you want. And also, this board has not bought anybody in January for the last 3 years, so anybody clinging on to January, forget about it. It's September. We've got loads of games before January comes. We've just messed up a transfer window where we could have bought in the right players in. Forget January. Forget about it. As for the midfield three, I wouldn't have Fred and McSauce as a CDM pivot. I think we should have one CDM, one box-to-box, and Pogba in a little bit more advanced box-to-box, like we did in the first 3 months. But we've seriously got to figure out a way to play against teams that sit back. Ollie's got one way of playing. I was thinking about this last night. The first 3 months he was here, we were hitting teams on the break. Then we started to get teams that sit back against us and we struggled. And again, we're struggling against teams that sit back against us. We don't create enough opportunities. I know Rashford had a couple last night, but we're playing bloody Astana. Against teams of our level, we don't create enough opportunities. We struggle when teams sit back, and we only seem to have one way of playing, which is on the break. He's got to find a different way of playing, and fast. I think against West Ham, they'll have a go at us and we might be able to hit them on the break. But you know what? When we play Newcastle, will they hit us on the break? I don't know. Memory Lane Cinema says, "Yeah, you whine all the time that the youth are ready." Well, you know what, mate? The youth had their chance last night, didn't they? Are they ready? Maybe some of us need to be standard correct on that. I think Twansebi's ready. I think Gomez looks ready. I think Greenwood needs to be nurtured in gradually. I think if you started playing him every game, he would struggle. He needs to be nurtured, and Ollie said that himself. And Chong, I don't think he's ready. So that was the brilliance of last night. Give them the game. Twansebi's ready, but he can't play because we've got Lindelof and Maguire. Gomez is ready. I would play Gomez. I think Gomez is ready, but they're not all ready. No, you know, the whole point of them playing last night was to start giving them game time. And, you know, Chong was poor last night. Doesn't mean he won't be brilliant in his next game. That's the brilliance of youth. It's inconsistent. But we have to rely on them at the moment because the board, you know, whatever your criticism is, whether you want to moan about Ollie, when you want to moan about the youth, when you want to moan, whatever you want to moan about, it all comes back to the same thing. If we'd bought a midfielder and an attacker in the summer, we wouldn't be moaning because we'd have a midfielder and attacker to play instead of Pogba and Martial. We're woefully weak and thin when we get injuries in the attack in the midfield. You know, if Dan James gets injured when Pogba and Martial are back, we're weak, we're thin. You know, it's not just about Pogba and Martial. It's any of our decent midfielders or attackers get injured and we're thin on the ground because we didn't buy anybody. But you know what? Some people still don't understand that. Shante says, Pogba and Martial out, old boy. Rashford isn't a striker, says your boy. He is a winger. He is trying to mimic Martial's style. Let's not make Greenwood do the same thing. Well, I think the mistake last night wasn't playing Greenwood down the middle, wasn't it? You know, you had Chong out of position on the left when he plays on the right. You had Rashford out of position up front when he's better on the left. And you had Greenwood on the right, who's better up front. We had our front three all out of position last night just to accommodate Rashford up front to see if he could score a goal. I think, you know, you need to change that. Mark, do you remember we have Glazers? Oh, I think we all remember that. And Chris Aguiman says, Rashford is young, but he has experience at this level, having played for 3 years. Do you think it's time for the jury to be out on him despite his age? Is he being overplayed due to lack of depth? Well, Chris, you've hit the nail on the head there. Whatever people think about Rashford, we need to play him at the moment because there's nobody else. We didn't invest in the summer in an area where we let 2 players go, Lukaku and Sanchez. And now Rashford's out of form, low on confidence, needs dropping, but has to play every minute of every game because we've got an injury to 1 player. Like, Martial's the only attacker injured, and that's why we've got to play Rashford all the time. We haven't got the squad depth to drop anybody, really. Of our experienced players, if Martial wasn't scoring, you couldn't drop him. Who are you going to drop him for? If Rashford's not scoring, you can't drop him. Who are you going to drop him for? If Pogba plays really badly, you can't drop him because we haven't got anyone to come in for Pogba. You know, we've left ourselves massively reliable on these players. And you know what? Another side of that, and this might not be relevant, but when I used to play football, and I'm sure some of you are the same, I used to play in a decent team with about 16 good players in it. And if you were playing badly and you got dropped or you'll get injured, you would play with an injury because you were like, if I don't play, I might lose my place to that other player. Martial and Pogba at the moment, they know the minute they're fit, they're straight back in. There is no competition for places for these senior players because they know they're going to walk straight back in. And that means that, you know, they're not going to force themselves to get back because they're going to wait till they're fully fit. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, we've all been in that situation where we'll play with a little bit of knock. We'll get ourselves back a little bit sooner. I mean, look at Harry Kane in the Champions League. He got himself back for that when he really wasn't fully fit. And at the moment, the lack of competition for places is killing us. And then the injuries are compounding that. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on the video. Get your comments in below. It's going to be another stressful game, isn't it, on the weekend? If we can get a win in it, fantastic. Thanks for watching. Please smash a like on the video. Subscribe if you're new. And we'll be back later on with the preview at 8 o'clock. Live!